Hello and welcome to Living Beyond Limits. I am Reverend Jennifer Spear and we are a part of Centers for Spiritual Living. I'm so glad that you've joined us today for this online service. When we meet normally in person together, one of the first things that we do is say good morning to the people that are sitting near us. And since we're not sitting together this morning, what I invite you to do is just to close your eyes for a moment and to imagine some of those people that are in that room, some of the people that sit near you. And if you aren't normally with us on a Sunday morning, I invite you just to hold in your mind's eye some of the people that you love and care about. And so imagine right now that you are wrapping them in your love. Imagine that you are wrapping them in your care, seeing them standing in their own wholeness and in their own authentic power. And to know that as you do that, you are actually sending them a blessing. And to recognize also that as you have done that for the people that sit near you and the people that you care about, that there are people who watch this who do that same thing for you, who are sending you a blessing and wrapping you in their love and their care and seeing you stand in your own wholeness and your own power. And so what a blessing it is to get to participate in being a blessing for each other. And so we will begin our service this morning by having our practitioner, Ray Bunch, come forward. He is going to lead us in an evocation as we begin to evoke an awareness of the presence of Spirit that is right here in this room. And he will be followed by our new favorite reader, Colleen Lynn, who's going to do a contemplative reading for us. And so I invite you just to kind of begin to slow down and to settle into yourself and to allow the vibration of this bowl to just slow you down.
So I just invite you to come to the center of your own beingness right now. And to take this time off. Stop. Step out of the world. Step into your own consciousness. And take this time to nurture, love, and allow yourself to be loved, and to open up to new ideas and to remembering old ideas. So right now, as I turn within, I invite you to turn within also. To feel the weight of your own body. To be conscious of the sacred ground that you're standing on or sitting on or however you're being there, laying on. To feel the support. To wrap yourself in your own love. To love yourself just exactly like you are. To acknowledge the fact that there is a power and a source that's in your life that is ever expanding, ever growing, ever nurturing you. And is always on your side. It loves you unconditionally. It will give you what you ask for. So just ask for self-love right now. Allow yourself to find that peace at the center of your own beingness. To find the love that you not only have for yourself, but for your family, your friends, the people you know, the people you don't know, and all life. So I just bless this service, I bless this time, and I am so grateful to be aligned with and associate with people that are willing to step out of the world and love themselves and know that we are loving everything and everything is loving us right back. And I simply say, thank you, God. And so it is.
Thank you, Ray. My reading today is from The Art of Being by Dennis Merritt Jones. This chapter is called, What is Your Message to the World? Has there ever been a time in your life when your actions differed from your words and beliefs? If you're like most people, there are times when it may be hard to walk the talk. It is easy to speak our truth when we're around those who openly support and agree with us. On the other hand, it can be a bit more challenging to stay in your truth, walk the talk, when there are people around us who have different beliefs or opposing points of view. When I think of the lives lived in spiritual integrity, I think of people like Mahatma Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. These men walked their talk. Gandhi was a great example of an individual who by his actions told the world who he was, what he valued, and what he stood for. Not only did he talk the talk, he walked the talk. His life was a classic example of the old adage, actions speak louder than words. Likewise, Martin Luther King Jr. was unbending in his commitment to showing the world who he was, who he knew himself to be. I have often wondered what people like Gandhi and King, what gave people like Gandhi and King the fortitude to stand in their truth and live it, to actually be it, even in the face of violent opposition. I believe it had everything to do with the relationship they had with their God. It fully enveloped them to the point they became what they believed. Spiritually, compassionate, loving kindness, integrity, equality, non-judgment, non-violence. Those were words synonymous with both of these great men. Their lives became their message, and the world knew it. You and I are no different. We all have a message to bring to the world. That is why we are here. What is your message to the world? What do you stand for? Are you committed to living it 24/7, irrespective of who you are with and where you may be? What role does your relationship with God play in your message? Once you have this clarity, your life will automatically become your message because you will live authentically from inside out, allowing the presence of God within to permeate the essence of your every thought, driving every word, every deed, and every action. Now more than ever, the world needs your message. Gandhi and King knew it. so do you and I. Let's walk the talk together.
Fabulous. Thank you both very much. And so at Centers for Spiritual Living and at Living Beyond Limits, we sing that song that says, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." But do you ever find it hard to actually be at peace? Do you find it hard sometimes to be the presence of peace or to be the place where peace begins? Do you find it hard for peace to begin with you sometimes? Do you ever find it hard to walk your talk, like Colleen just said? Or do your actions and your words differ from the spiritual principles that you actually stand on? I know that we all want to be peaceful. I know that we all want to also be a beneficial presence in the world, and we want to be able to be anchored in that inner peace, centered in that peace as we move throughout our lives. But boy, sometimes it can be hard. You know, with all that's going on in the world right now, with politics and with the election and with politicians pushing their agenda through in the midst of a pandemic where things are constrained, and maybe you know people or have loved ones who have gotten sick, or maybe you even know people who have died. And then there are also those people who are unwilling to wear masks or unwilling to wear them correctly. There are also those people that say they won't wear a mask because it infringes upon their rights. Or even those people that say COVID is just a big hoax and it's not even real. It seems more difficult than ever right now to remain peaceful and to be the ones that bring peace into this world. And the real problem, as I see it, really isn't that this country is going crazy. That is a problem. But the real problem is really that we expect our peace to come from the world. We expect our peace to come from the people and the situations and the circumstances that are around us. But you remember, Mahatma Gandhi said, each one of us has to find his peace from within. And peace, to be real, must be unaffected by outside circumstances. Darn it. You know, the truth is peace, or at least lasting peace, only really comes from within us. And it comes from within us when we get past our mind chatter and past our judgments and past all of our commentary. Unless, of course, you're sitting in front of a lake. That's easy to feel peaceful. Or if you're watching a beautiful sunset or a sunrise, but you can't sit at that lake forever, and that sunrise or that sunset only lasts for a few minutes. So we have to be able to find that peace within ourselves so that we can anchor into that. Because the truth is, our own peace and our own well-being only comes from within. Like I said, when we get past our opinions and our judgments and our chatter, and when we move into that place within us that is silence, peace is found in our communion with our own divine beingness. Peace is found when we commune with our own spirit and with the God of our being. When we move into that absolute presence in meditation and in silence, that presence that is behind everything and within everything, we move into a realm where there are no pairs of opposites, There is no up and down, in and out, good and bad, light and dark. There is just beingness itself. And even though there are no pairs of opposites, in that absolute presence, everything is contained within its wholeness. That's what Rumi was talking about when he said, out beyond wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I will meet you there. He was talking about a field of consciousness where there is only peace, where there is only well-being, the realm of the absolute. And when we are in that place of stillness, that is where we hear those words, or we feel that sense that all is well. Because the truth is, all is well with your soul right now in this minute, and all is well with your soul always. All is well with the soul of every single person on this planet in this moment and in every moment, because we are one with the one, because we are eternal beings and eternal in that presence. Carolyn Reynolds, in her book Spiritual Fitness, said, no matter how far you have to stretch out of your stillness into the mayhem around you, you must return to your inner peace or anchor. Otherwise, you will begin to float adrift in the sea of others' emotions and fears. And boy, isn't there a sea of emotions and fears right now with everything that is going on in the world and everything that is going on in this country. You see, we live in this collective consciousness, this collective field of human emotions and thoughts and feelings. That's what Ernest Holmes called race consciousness, the consciousness of the human race. And that's what Carl Jung talked about when he talked about the collective unconscious. So we live in this field, and we are actually affected by it because we are a part of it. Because in truth, there is only one, and we are all part of that oneness. And not only are we affected by that collective field, but we affect that field. We affect that field by our feelings and our emotions and our thoughts and our energy. We add that to that collective field. And so I really think we, as human beings and spiritual beings, have two desires. And one is for us to be at peace. And the other one is to be a beneficial presence in this world. Therefore, I think that we have a mandate, and that is to add to that collective consciousness what we want for the world, what we want the world to experience, that we add those feelings and those thoughts to that collective. So my question to you is, what are you adding to that collective field? Are you adding more anger and more frustration and more divisiveness and more hate and more pain? Or are you adding to that collective field more peace and more love and more compassion and more unity? And when I ask you that question, I'm not talking about you needing to agree with what's going on in the world, or to agree with the decisions and the choices that some people are making. But I'm talking about how we come to those things that we disagree with. But what I know for sure is that your actions, or mine, our actions, our hatred, does not change the actions of those people that are making choices that we don't agree with. It throws us off center. It removes us from our peace. And those feelings go into that collective consciousness. And so, can you respond from a place of your own inner peace? Can you respond from your spirit to what's going on in the world? Or can you only respond from fear and anger and defensiveness and ego? Are you able to find your center and to remember the truth that you already know inside of you and to respond and to react from that place? And then go out and make the changes in the world that you want to see happen? Or do you only react from fear? In that same book that Colleen read from, there's something else I'm going to read for you. And it's actually called, What Will You Contribute to the Continuum? He says, many, many years ago, great contributors to humankind, such as Mozart, Leonardo da Vinci, Plato, and Socrates, as well as spiritual masters such as Jesus, Buddha, and St. Francis, stood and gazed at the same moon at which we gaze. I wonder what thoughts ran through their minds regarding their purpose here, their time here, and their connection with the universe. And so I invite you to close your eyes for a moment. And as you take your next breath, imagine that you are sharing sacred space with those people who came before you and made a difference. In so many ways, they contributed to who you are and what you have today. Now imagine that you are breathing the same atoms that those individuals breathed. Feel their presence and personalize the gifts they brought to humanity. And finally, realize that you too shall pass those atoms on to some other person who will live thousands of years from now. There is even more you shall add. Imagine the gifts you have yet to bring to humanity. Imagine those people 2,000 years from now imagining you. What is the gift that you will give to them? What will you add to that collective field that we all live in? In the Science of Mind textbook, Ernest Holmes says, race suggestion is a very real thing, and each individual carries around with them many impressions which they never consciously thought of or experienced. Just as each person, place, or thing has a subjective atmosphere or remembrance, so each town, city, or nation has its individual atmosphere. This is the result of the mentalities of those who live in such places. Just as a city has an atmosphere, so does an entire nation. The combined thought of those who inhabit a nation create a national consciousness. And he goes on to say, there is a tendency on the part of all of us to reproduce the accumulated subjective experience of the human race. There is a tendency for all of us to reproduce what is in that collective field. What is in that collective field is accessible to all of us. And if your thinking matches up in any way, if your vibration matches up to it anyway, or if you are open to it, then you have access to those aspects of that collective consciousness. We feel that atmosphere. You feel an atmosphere when you walk into Living Beyond Limits, even though the service hasn't even started yet. You feel an atmosphere when you walk into a crowd of people, what it feels like. Does it feel anxious? Does it feel peaceful? It depends what's going on and what the people are thinking and feeling around you. So we add to that collective field so that it becomes more readily available to those who are open to that. So when we spend time communing in that silence of our own being, when we spend time communing with our own divine nature, and that silence and that peace within us, when we feel peace, it becomes more readily available to the people that are around us and to people at large. And I'm sure you've had other people say to you, you feel peaceful. They can feel your peace. So doing spiritual practice, like meditating and finding that place of silence and stillness and peace within you, or reading things that are spiritually inspiring that help you remember who you are and help you remember the truth. Listening to talks like this or other inspirational talks that you might find online do 5 things. One is, the first thing they do is they help us find our peace. The peace that already lives within us. And the more often we move into that place of peace within us, the more easily we are able to do it in the future. The more often we do it, the easier it is to get there. Especially when things are chaotic. And that doesn't mean that you won't ever be knocked off center, because we all get knocked off center. I get knocked off center. But what happens is the more you practice being in that place, the easier it is to get back there and you don't have to stay off-centered. I used to stay off-centered for days, and now I can remind myself, oh yes, I can move back into that place of peace. And I move into that more easily. I remember when I first started doing this practice of meditation, and the first time I really realized that I could do that. I had an appointment to go to, and I had to get on the 405 freeway and drive down to Orange County, South Orange County, and I got on the freeway, and lo and behold, there's a huge traffic jam. And traffic is moving at, 2 miles an hour, 0 miles an hour, 3 miles an hour, 0 miles an hour. And I started to get really anxious because I realized I'm going to be late for this very important appointment. But what I realized in that moment is, I can breathe into this place of peace. And I was able to do that and to sit in that place of peacefulness within me, realizing my stress and my angst was not going to get me there any quicker, just like your anger and frustration, hatred of some people in the world isn't going to change their behavior. It's not going to change the laws or the things that you don't agree with that are happening in politics. I could sit in my peace and just be there. The second thing that doing that spiritual practice and that meditation does is we come to the world with a different spirit. We come with a greater sense of anchoredness, a greater sense of our own beingness and who we are, a greater sense of our own wholeness. And when we come from that place within us of peace and wholeness, we automatically come to the world with more love and more kindness and a greater sense of unity and connection with people. We come to the world differently because we're in touch with that part of ourselves. And the third thing that happens from that spiritual practice and from being different then is that we become an example for people of how to be peaceful in this world and how to be loving and kind. Because I don't know if you know this, but social psychology experiments all over the place say we look to others to know how to behave. There are studies that show if there's grass and there's a sidewalk that goes around the grass, if people are walking on the sidewalk, everyone continues to walk around the grass on the sidewalk. But as soon as one person walks across the grass, then all sorts of people start walking across the grass. There's a really famous study in social psychology where there were 3 people put in a room that were filling out applications. 2 of those 3 were actually plants by the people that were doing the study. And they were told to not react to the stimulus that was happening. And so what happened is smoke started pouring out one of the outlets in the wall. And those two plants just ignored it and kept filling out their application. The other person saw it and starts getting anxious, but looked to the others of how to behave. That person sat there for 20 minutes as smoke poured into the room. If a person was in the room by themselves, every time they got up and went and told the people that were running the study that there was smoke coming out of the wall. We even look to other people to tell us what to do with our popcorn container after we see a movie at the movie theater. We look to others. So when we go out there and we are being an example of what it looks like to be centered in ourselves and to be peaceful and to be loving, other people see that example and it modifies or influences their behavior in the world. That's what mob mentality is. It's looking to others of how to behave. The fourth thing that it does, our spiritual practice, is it adds peace to that collective consciousness that I was talking about. And the last thing that it does is it allows us to live in alignment with our spirits. And so my invitation to you this week is to ask yourself, in whatever reaction you're having to whatever is going on in the world, to ask yourself, who do I want to be in this? And I invite you to write that down. Who do I want to be in this? And every single morning when you get up, to ask yourself, who do I want to be today? Because if you ask yourself that in the morning, before things happen that might knock you off center, that choice has already been made. And that choice will influence the way that you act in this world and the way that you feel because of what you're doing and how you're acting. Who do I want to be today? To ask yourself, what do I want to add to the continuum? What do I want to add to the collective field that we're living in that is now more accessible to other people? What gift do I want to leave this world? When people 2,000 years from now are looking back, what's the gift that you want to leave this world? So meditate and find that place of peace inside of you so that you can anchor back into it when things are stressful. Find that place of perfect equilibrium. The part of you that is not attached to what happens in the world, but the part of you that is eternal, that is Godness. And read the things that are spiritually inspiring so that they can bring you back to that center and remind yourself of who you are and what you are so that you can remember that when you forget. Because we all forget. I forget. Find the things that inspire you and help you remember that so that you can actually be who you want to be in this world. And as a result, you and I will be experiencing greater peace within ourselves. And as a result, we will be bringing greater peace into this world and affecting that collective consciousness towards peace. And so thank you so much for your commitment to your own spirit and to walking this spiritual path. Thank you for your commitment to being a beneficial presence in the world and to living your own spiritual principles. So blessings to you on this path, and thank you so much. And so I invite you to join me in an affirmative prayer right now. And so I turn my attention toward that one that is beyond name, beyond description, but that is a felt presence. I know that one from which all things have sprung forth, that creative intelligence and love, that life energy itself is always right where we are. That it surrounds us and it envelops us. It lifts us and it carries us. And it calls to our hearts and our souls. yes, I am here. That I is the I of our own beingness. And so today we listen within to that I am presence within us and recognize that it is a presence of peace and a presence of wholeness and a presence of good. That in this presence, there is nothing that is unlike it. And in reality, this is the only presence and the only power that there is in this universe. And so today we step into it and we step into our own spiritual nature. And from here, we are a beneficial presence in this world. And so today we heed the calls of our souls to be the presence of peace and of love. And we take that with us into our own lives, into our own families, into our own homes and our relationships and our places of work. And we take that presence of peace and love, that atmosphere of peace and love, and we bring it into this world so that it is magnified and unfolds itself everywhere. How grateful I am to be aware of this presence and this life in God, and how grateful I am to be a blessing to this world. And so I release this prayer into the creative law of the universe, knowing that it is unfolding itself because we have opened ourselves to it, and that healing is occurring on this planet. And so I speak this word not just about us who are listening to this, but I speak this word about every single person on this planet. Every person who is making any kind of decisions, every person who is a leader in any way. I know this truth about every single one of our politicians and every single person that is about to vote. That we are all inspired from that place of truth within us. From the truth of oneness, the oneness of humanity, and the oneness of the whole. That we are each inspired by that presence of love and the wisdom and intelligence that has created this cosmos, that sustains it and maintains it. That presence is revealing itself through each and every single one of us as good for all of humanity. And so I release this word into that creative law, knowing that it is unfolding itself right now because it is the truth. And because where there is an opening in consciousness, which is what we are, there is an opening everywhere because it is all one. And so I release this prayer and I say, and so it is. And so I have a couple of invitations for you. One is that there is going to be a link attached to the email that you get that has a meditation. That is a meditation for centering and for self-nurturance and self-love that you can click on. And that can be a tool that you use to help you find that place of center and to come from that place within you. That we are having an outdoor service at Hartwell Park on October 25th. We invite you to join us for that. We have coffee on Thursday mornings in the park at that same location. If you don't know the location and you would like to be on our email list, please send us an email at livingbeyondlimitscsl@gmail.com, and we will make sure you get on that list so you know locations and that you know what's going on. We have prayer shawls, and we are doing ministry of prayer. So if you would like to be wrapped in that energy of prayer or to be supported in prayer for the next week, you can email that address, or you can email, call, or text Barbara Conant, and she will make sure that you get on our ministry of prayer list. We invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel, which gives you a one-click to watch our talks, and all the talks are archived there. We also have a Thursday evening Zoom call at 7 p.m. that is connection and spiritual practice and conversation that is rich and nurturing, soul-nurturing time together. So that address also comes out on that email link. And lastly, I would like to thank you so much for your continued support of Living Beyond Limits during this time of when we aren't always meeting together. Every other week we're doing in the park. But We are being supported and we are doing well, and I thank you so much for that. And so I hope to see you next week in the park, and otherwise I will see you back here in 2 weeks. Lots of love to you. Bye.